Greetings once again and welcome to our broadcast today. We said for the few days that we have in God's presence, we are going to talk about generational changes making an impact in somebody's life, bringing a dimension to a situation, impacting and changing status quo. There was a time when Jesus was ministering to people, and now the Bible says he looked at the crowds. He looked at the people after preaching to them, after sharing God's thoughts with the multitude. He turned to Philip and said, "Philip, where can we buy bread to feed them? For they are fainting. Where can we buy bread to feed them? For they are hungry." I want you to understand that ministry involves preaching, also feeding. If you preach and you don't feed the people, you are running short of the concept that Jesus Christ had. Now, it has to be two parts. You preach, that's spiritual. You must also feed, that's physical. So our ministry approach, if we are to make an impact, if we are to change the world, we must be spiritual as much as we attend the physical. So you've got to understand now that Jesus ministered the spiritual aspect. He also ministered the physical aspect. So we have got to understand that it's a two-part approach. You feed people spiritually, then you cannot send them home hungry. So let us adopt the Jesus approach. Very effective, very spiritual, very heavenly. The approach that Jesus used, very effective. He left a mark. Jesus preached for 3 years. In those 3 years, he changed the world. So this particular day, at this particular incident, after preaching to the multitude, 5,000 in number, he asked Philip, "Where can we buy bread for these to eat?" So he was concerned about their welfare. So ministry has got to show concern. You have got to be compassionate if you are to help our generations. If you are to help people permanently, you must be filled with compassion. There's a message that I'm going to share with you called the hard and the softer side of Jesus. The lamb and the lion dimensions of Jesus. Now, in this case, the softer side of the Messiah. After preaching, he was then concerned about the physical. He said, "Where can we buy bread to feed them?" From his side, Jesus was prepared to spend on behalf of the congregants. "Philip, where can we buy bread to feed the multitude?" He did not say, "Where can they buy bread?" Jesus said, "Philip, where can we buy bread for them?" So ministry must be two-part. You preach, that's spiritual. You feed, that's physical. So if you preach and preach and preach and don't feed the people, you are falling short of what Jesus did. So Jesus teaches us, different dimensions of ministry. After preaching, he was concerned about feeding. So we've got to understand that when we minister, we meet the spiritual needs, we meet the physical needs of the people. So ministry must do both spiritual and physical. So we've got to understand that at this level, generational changers are people that will preach spiritual things. They must also minister physical needs of the people. Time has come when we must give food to the hungry. We must give clothes to those who are feeling cold. Time has come that after the pulpit ministry, we must also go beyond and go to the kitchen. Remember in the book of Acts, disciples were feeding the people. If you read Acts chapter 6, it tells us that deacons were chosen to feed the people. They were serving tables. That means ministry has got a part where people must eat real food. So ministry has got pulpit, ministry has got kitchen. So you've got to understand that ministry beyond the temple, beyond the tabernacle, we must go to the kitchen and meet the physical needs of the people. We must provide food for the people. After people listen to your preaching, they must also get a plate of food. So that is holistic approach of ministry. So understand that Jesus ministered to the needs of the people. He said to Philip, where can we buy bread for them to eat? So Jesus was prepared to spend something to feed the people. So our ministry is incomplete if we fail to feed the people. According to Jesus' standards of ministry, you preach to people, you feed them. You preach to them, you feed them. You cannot preach to them and they go home hungry. So we must reach a level, a dimension where we understand that after we preach, we must also take the people to the kitchen and we say, choose what you want to eat. So that is complete, that is holistic approach to ministry, the dimension Jesus used in 3 years to change the world. So the man preached for 3 years and he changed the whole world. We're talking about generational changes. In 3 years, the man became popular. The man was very, very influential. Every household, they were talking about him. So he says to Philip, where can we buy bread to feed them? Now, Philip said to Jesus, 6 months' salary cannot afford to feed this multitude. So that simply means Philip was an accountant. He had a calculation. He looked at the crowd. He looked at the amount needed. He said 6 months' salary is not enough to feed the multitude. But then there was another disciple present, Andrew. Now Andrew interjects the conversation. Andrew says, there is a boy here with 5 loaves and 2 fish. There is a boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. But what is that amongst the crowd? So Andrew gave a hint or suggestion that there is something. He also cancelled it out by saying it's nothing compared to the numbers. So there are people who lack faith. As we do ministry, there are people who have information like Philip. Philip knew that 6 months' salary is not enough. Andrew also knew that there is a boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. So Andrew said, we have something here, but it's not enough. That means Andrew did not have faith in the Jesus he was following. Jesus had changed water to wine. Remember, the first miracle was at Cana of Galilee at the wedding. So Jesus had already turned water into wine. But these disciples did not believe Jesus can still do something new. So Andrew said, the boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. But what is that? It means it's nothing. It can't do anything. So understand that in ministry, as we serve God, there are people of faith. There are people who lack faith. There are people who don't believe Jesus can multiply something. There are people who don't believe Jesus can do something. They follow him, yes. They have heard about him, yes. They believe Jesus is good, yes. But they don't believe he can do something. I declared August as a month of faith. And you've got to understand, this month we believe God. This month we have extreme, extraordinary faith. So we have got to move with people who believe that Jesus can do anything. Anytime, anyhow, anyway. So Jesus can do anything, anytime, anyhow, anyway, with anyone. That's Jesus we believe in. So generational changes believe in God. For with him, nothing is impossible. He said to Abraham, that angel said to Sarah and Abraham, I am the Lord. Is there anything too difficult for me? So we must reach a level of a conviction where we understand God can do anything, anyway, anyhow, with anybody, using anything. So Andrew said, there is a boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. But what is that? That means it's nothing. Nothing can be done. But remember what Jesus said. He ignored what Andrew said. He said, let the people sit down. Tell the 5,000 to sit down. Then he took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, blessed them, and said, give them to eat. Now look at the levels of faith. Look at how Jesus does things. So when we bring what we got, as little as it is, when we bring what is available, as little as it is, Jesus is capable of changing and multiplying whatever we give him. So this is a God who can change things. This is God who can turn things around. This is God who changed water to wine. Remember, he can turn a colorless situation to colorful, a tasteless situation to sweetness. He can change around anybody's life, anybody's situation, anybody's complication. This is Jesus we are talking about. Generational changes. We can experience changes in our churches, in our lifestyles, in our families, everywhere we are, in our companies. We can change things. So we are looking at generational changes. People who impact situations, people who change environments, people who will never leave things as they were. Status quo must be cancelled. We will never leave things as they were. 3 years, Jesus changed the world. We have been around for so many years. Things must change. Situations must change. Relationships must change. Churches must change. So, we are generational changers. We are the seed of Abraham. We turn things around. We have stubborn faith. Abraham did not stagger in the promises of God. He believed against all hope. We are products of Abraham. We have got the DNA, incorruptible. We cannot be pushed down. We cannot be sidelined. We cannot be ignored. We are generational changers. We can't be ignored. We change things around wherever we are, wherever we get an opportunity, wherever we see the chance. We turn things around. We change situations. We change circumstances. We must never go along with the grain, following the flow of things. No, we go opposite of facts. We oppose what seems obvious. We are generational changes. So understand from this series that I'm sharing with you here, we change generations, we change situations, we refuse the normal. We go the abnormal route, stubborn faith, August. We go against facts. So we belong to Jesus. We have the DNA that refuses to throw in the towel, refuses to give in, refuses to give up. We don't quit. We don't surrender. We don't turn our back to situations. We don't run away. We change situations. We change generations. We leave a legacy. We leave a mark. God bless you.